Kindly be seated. Once again, I request all of you to be seated as we are about to begin with our session. Ladies and gentlemen, to further curtail the delay, may I request everyone to kindly be seated. Maybe you can carry your cup of coffee on the table. Kindly be settling down. We have our speakers who are here and we would be beginning with our session. May I request the organizing team member to request all the members who are in the hall to be seated and kindly continue to keep your electronic gadgets on silent mode. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the next technical session. Please join me in welcoming the panelists, the speakers of this session. Please put your hands together as I invite onto the stage the President Hydrogen Association of India, Shri R.K. Malhotra. Very warm welcome to you, sir. Kindly put your hands together as we invite our eminent speakers of the session onto the stage. May we also request eminent scientist Dr. C. Gopinath, NCL, to kindly join us onto the stage. We are also inviting onto the stage CTO Nutrace, Dr. Rochan Sinha. Warm welcome to you, sir. And we also invite onto the stage from SPDA, Mr. Prashant. We're requesting Mr. Prashant to kindly join us onto the stage. He'll be joining us in a moment. With the permission from the dais, we begin with our session. Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, our first address would be by Shri R.K. Malhotra, the President Hydrogen Association of India. But before I invite sir to share his thoughts, may I say a few words about him. Dr. Malhotra is a distinguished energy professional with over 45 years of experience, which included long tenure of 37 years at Indian Oil Corporation, where he rose to the board levels as chairman and director R&D. He also served for nearly 6 years as Director General of the Federation of Indian Petroleum Industry. He is presently the Professor of Practice Adjunct in the Department of Energy Science and Engineering at the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. He is also the chairman at the Sarva Energy Solutions Private Limited and the co-founder and director at the Carbon U-Turn Technologies Private Limited. He has been chair and member of several national committees for policy formulation, and he has received many prestigious awards, for instance, the Rudolf Ehren Award, the Global Excellence Award for his work in renewable energy sector, IIT BHU Alumni Award for his excellence in R&D, and Lifetime Achievement Award from SAE's India, NLGI India, amongst many more. With those words, please put your hands together as we welcome Dr. R.K. Malhotra.
Thank you. Firstly, I would like to congratulate all of you in this celebration of the Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Day. Thanks to MNRE, Secretary Mr. Yadav for giving me this opportunity to be here and join you in the celebrations and sharing some of my thoughts on the hydrogen, where I believe the time has come. Actually, we have been talking about this subject for quite long, but now really during last couple of years, in fact, post-COVID scenario, we have seen a lot of activities around this. And I would like to compliment Government of India also for the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister for Green Hydrogen Mission, which is very ably being driven by the MNRE, and particularly because they have involved all the stakeholders, the industry, and again, very well thought of initiative to organize this program. World today is grappling with the climate emergency. And on account of global warming, which is because of the unmindful exploitation of the fossil fuels without bothering about its climate implications. In last century, the global temperatures rose by about 0.6 degrees, and 2/3 of that temperature rise happened during 1975 to 2000. And if we continue with this situation, we are heading for a disaster. I need not say anything further because this, I think it's not changing or what, yes. This implications of this climate change, all of us have started seeing. This will, in terms of when many of the hotter climate at certain places, floods, and so many kind of different infections. But long-term effect would be the rise in sea levels, melting of glaciers, and also many kind of diseases and food shortages, etc., which are bound to happen unless we check this global warming. And COVID, I always wonder whether it was a fallout of the climate change or a wake-up call by the nature that we must act now. All this, if we have to check the climate change, I think we have to reinvent our energy basket. If we have to reduce and also to reduce the carbon emissions. The key pillars for decarbonizing, as is important for climate change to be reversed, we have to have energy efficiency. We ought to have behavioral change, electrification, renewables, and hydrogen is very important, which will find a good place in this, and the carbon capture utilization, which was also mentioned by the Principal Scientific Advisor in his address before that. And I'm very glad that some of the policy which has been announced around the carbon trading and carbon verification, etc., which will also go a long way in helping this. So post-COVID energy transition, the International Energy Agency also gave a call that we must include investments, not only in electricity, but also in hydrogen. They focused actually on hydrogen, that the International Energy Agency said that we must focus on hydrogen and for a much cleaner, resilient, and modern energy sector to be built world over. And in this line, global oil majors have all been working towards reducing the hydrocarbon spending. They are reducing and they are pushing towards energy transition for renewables. Indian oil and gas sector is not behind. They have also announced plans for greener energy and including hydrogen and related infrastructure which they are setting up. We are now discussing more energy transition more in the recent years, but this particular slide shows you that over the years we have been having the energy transition, although we say that now we are in an era of energy transition. But you can see that the wood to coal to oil, natural gas, and hydrogen, we have been reducing the carbon in the content in the fuel. The hydrogen to carbon ratio has been changing. And ultimately, ultimate fuel is hydrogen, which will be the carbon free. So now we are moving towards that. And in this era of energy transition, we have also to talk about India's growth story and the energy demand. India is, as you know, is the fastest growing economy. Current GDP of 3.75 trillion is going to move much faster. We are going to move from 5th position to 3rd by 2027. So all this will result in growth in per capita income, aspirations of middle class, and the industry and the middle class will drive the energy demand. So we are in a situation where we have to meet the energy demand amidst climate commitments. So our leadership, the Honorable Prime Minister in various forums in COP and also in the different meetings, he has made some commitments and some targets have been defined. So all this, starting with India will reach its non-fossil energy capacity to 500 gigawatt by 2030, to meet 50% of energy requirements from renewables by 2030, to reduce the carbon emissions by 1 billion tons through 2022 to 2030. By 2030, reduce the carbon intensity of its economy by less than 45. So these are some of the targets, which also include 5 million tons of green hydrogen by 2030. And all of us know that we have a target of reaching net zero by 2070. And hydrogen is going to be a big enabler for that. Hydrogen is colorless, but for defining the different kind of production routes, we have given it different colors. We have talked about brown, gray, blue. Blue is one when you convert some of the fossil fuel-based hydrogen and you capture and sequestrate or utilize that carbon. Then you call it blue. Biomass is sometimes given turquoise, but we normally include it in the green also, which is produced from renewables through the electricity route. And in all this transition, you can see that the carbon emissions are going down. So ultimately, the green hydrogen is going to be the solution for reducing the carbon emissions and reducing the global warming. Now, if you look at the global hydrogen production, from 2021 to 2030, we are 1990 was the I think 90 million tons was the production of hydrogen globally, which never had any green hydrogen in the component. You can see in 2030 we'll be having fossil fuel based. We'll have blue also, which will be based with carbon capture and utilization. We'll have green also. 2050 we'll have a very large green component and blue, and the fossil fuel-based hydrogen will virtually diminish. Now, if you look at the hydrogen demand in India, we have 6.7 million tons was the hydrogen demand in the country in 2020, which is going to go up to about 13 million tons by 2030, and will go maybe 30 or beyond by 2050. Now, if you look at the Indian hydrogen demand scenario in this particular slide, you see that the 6.7 million tons, which is about 7 to 8% of global hydrogen demand, this will grow to 13, as I said earlier. But if you look at we have a target of 5 million tons of green hydrogen. I think you can see that 13 and 5, there will be a gap of 8, which is even more than what hydrogen we are producing today. So that means that we will have to continue to produce hydrogen from fossil sources, but we need to bring in somehow the CCUS activities, or we have to ramp up this 5 to 10 or maybe 15 or 20 if we have to also consider exports of green ammonia, etc. from this country. So there is large potential for the growth of green hydrogen. In net zero scenario, 10% of the global energy demand and 1/3 of the hydrogen demand will be for hydrogen-based fuels like ammonia, synthetics. So that is little. So as I said, 5 million tons is not sufficient. We will have to continue to produce others. China is producing a lot of hydrogen from coal. India also has coal. And can we do coal gasification? BHEL, Thermex, etc. They have developed indigenous technologies for coal gasification to produce methanol, but that can always be used to produce hydrogen also. But what you need is advanced CCUS systems. Without that, you will be again contributing to the global warming. So we cannot produce hydrogen from coal like China has been doing. We are a responsible country, so we will have to, look at some of the options of CCUS. If we have to look at that to supplement our green hydrogen, to meet the country's hydrogen demand. Finally, as I said, we'll have to focus on quickly, not wrapping up. I think that's that typographical mistakes to ramp up the hydrogen, production to meet the demand. So India's landscape for green hydrogen, as we are looking at, we have high water electrolysis. That is one which we all have been talking about. We are talking about several schemes to promote electrolysis, but waste to hydrogen is another great opportunity for the country, which we need to look upon. I think waste to hydrogen or biomass or agro-waste residue-based hydrogen is a very effective option. I think PSA also mentioned in the morning about the type of electrolyzers. We mostly have alkaline electrolyzers at present. They are the low-cost electrolyzers, but I think we will have to go for PEM-based electrolyzers in future. And then maybe solid oxide fuel cells, solid oxide electrolyzers, and anion. These are all futuristic technologies on which the R&D needs to be done. But right now, alkaline is very well defined, and PEM is picking up in any case, PEM-based electrolyzers. So this particular slide shows you the cost of renewable hydrogen is sensitive to the power price, electricity price, and also significant influence from the capacity factor or capex of the electrolyzer. So if we use electrolyzers capacity on a larger scale, we can make better use of electrolyzer. And if we can reduce the cost of the electrolyzer or the efficiency of electrolyzers, I think that is where we have to look at to reduce the cost of renewable hydrogen. The cost of green hydrogen from renewable is 9 liters of water you need. Then you need about 2.5 kilowatt hour of renewable electricity is costing you around 120, which you need, 120 or per kg of hydrogen. Then at that price of electricity, so transmission and distribution costs, they have been waived. Interstate ISTS waiver, etc., is going to help. And the cost of electrolyzer also adds. So subsidy of around 40 to 50, which is being thought of, will bring the cost closer to the hydrogen and carbon credits, which Mr. Bakare also announced. All these things will reduce the green hydrogen cost to a great extent. The cost of demineralized water also needs to be considered. And there are some of the people who are working on using the saline water or seawater. There are some projects being done in the country in R&D area. And the cost of electrolyzers have fallen by about 40% in last 5 years, and hopefully they will fall further, and we will have a brighter future of green hydrogen. The biomass to hydrogen, as I said, is a very attractive route for the production of hydrogen in the country. And this is the availability of biomass is quite significant. We have about 500 million tons of surplus biomass from agro residue or forest and wasteland kind of thing. And 200 million tons of biomass is unutilized at present. It is estimated that which is potentially available for hydrogen. And if you find that other biomass could also be possibly diverted for green hydrogen production if it is a more remunerative for the farmers who can sell the residue, and also some of the grass, etc., can be grown on wasteland. So these are some of the opportunities for producing biomass to hydrogen also. And then the technologies for biomass gasification, etc., are available. You can have CO plus H2 and then water gas shift reaction, and then you can produce a variety of chemicals or the hydrogen also. One of the research institute claims to have developed very unique high-yielding process that uses a novel microbial consortium to produce hydrogen directly from biomass without going through the gasification route, etc. And in the country, several biogas, the compressed biogas plant, CBG as is called, under the Satat scheme are coming up, which are based on biomass or agricultural waste or municipal waste, anaerobic digestion followed by purification. These are coming up under the Satat scheme. And maybe these can also, once you have a biogas, you can always reform it. That is primarily methane like natural gas. So we produce hydrogen from reforming of natural gas where the technology is well established. So maybe from biomass derived biogas, you can also produce hydrogen, which could classify into $2 to $3. You can get the cost also down, and then hydrogen, the CO2 emissions will also be much less, and they go into the circular economy when you talk in terms of the hydrogen produced from the CO2 generated in the process of hydrogen production. PSA also talked about hydrogen storage, which is a very, very important aspect when we talk in terms of hydrogen. Most appropriate storage medium depends on the volume to be stored. So we have large-scale storages where you will need hydrogen in due course of time, the salt caverns, etc., and storage tanks. But the most appropriate, as the PSA also mentioned, is the compressed gas hydrogen Type 4 cylinders. Right now we are having 350 bar approvals from PASO. I think that will also have to go to about 700 bar Type 4 cylinders when we get into the hydrogen usage for automobiles. So those are kind of, rest of the, I think liquid hydrogen is one, but you need very low temperatures of about 253 degrees minus. And then it uses energy for liquefaction, and then boil-off losses in a country like India where the climate is very hot also the boil-off losses would be much more. So we have a potential for compressed gaseous hydrogen storage, which will perhaps be more useful, and even the tube trailers, etc., for transportation of that hydrogen. Material-based hydrogen storage is a good opportunity, which is much more safer, but the technologies are under development, and you have the, the weight of the metal hydrides is very high. So that is an issue over there. Then finally, once you have hydrogen and then storage, then transmission of hydrogen is also a very, very important aspect. And the cost of delivered hydrogen will be not only the cost, it will have to be added to the cost of production. We normally talk in the terms of the cost of production will be so much, and then we feel that this will be the delivered cost of hydrogen. At times, the cost of storing the hydrogen and delivering it could be even more than the cost of the production of hydrogen. So if you have to look at the cost, which will have to be borne by the consumer of hydrogen, you will have to account for hydrogen storage cost, you will have to account for the hydrogen distribution, transmission and distribution cost. So some of the options where the very low energy density of hydrogen is there, but on mass basis it has a very high energy density. So this means that you have to compress it and then bottle it, or you have to put it into tube trailers, which will also have to be high compression type of carbon fiber based or Type 4 cylinders, or those kind of systems which can carry it at 700 bar or so and then transport hydrogen, because then the cost will be lower. India has also very large natural gas pipeline infrastructure, which is available with us, and we are increasing it. And then can we modify this to suit hydrogen? There are challenges about that because of the embrittlement of steel, which hydrogen causes. So you cannot carry more than certain percentage, about 15% or so. Beyond that, you cannot pump hydrogen into the natural gas pipelines. And if you mix it with natural gas pipelines, you can transport it, but then where you need hydrogen, you have to separate it out, but the technologies are available. You can have membrane technology to separate that hydrogen. So the easiest way possibly, or the cost-effective way, is to, where you produce green hydrogen, put it into the natural gas pipeline and separate out that hydrogen through the technologies which are available, separation technologies, where you want to use it. But the cost of separation will have to be added. So these are some of the issues which will also need to be tackled when we get into the hydrogen economy. So these are some of the distribution in nearby areas. You can do it by tube trailers or trucks. Long distance, more than 500 kilometers could be economical in liquid hydrogen, because or in the form of ammonia, etc., where you are exporting also, and then large distance transportation in that liquid form is much better. The pipelines, as I said, is the most cost effective, and the dedicated pipelines in future for hydrogen will need to come up. So whatever pipelines the country is setting up in future, I think that should be a recommendation from MNRE and under the mission to the petroleum ministry also, that future pipelines should be compatible with hydrogen. So those should be designed in such a way that today you can carry natural gas if you want, tomorrow you should be able to carry any percentage of hydrogen in that, or maybe neat hydrogen in future to be transported through the natural gas or those gas pipelines. Then we have the issue finally of India's push for green hydrogen utilization. I keep on hearing from in various forums that where is the outlet, the green hydrogen production, even 5 million tons when we are going to have 2030, how to use it, which will be the industry which will use it, because the cost at present is high. And when the refineries or fertilizer industry is producing hydrogen at about 130 rupees or 140 rupees a kg, and they have the plants, why should they be buying hydrogen, which is expensive? So maybe I believe Mr. Bakre has also been talking about some mandates. I don't know when is going to be announced. So he's smiling, but I know that there is some mandate which will have to be done by the government for production of, for compulsory or mandate use of green hydrogen to certain percentage, or ramping up in, along with the hydrogen production in time to come. But green ammonia production for fertilizers and exports is already being considered, where many of you have been working on. Application in petroleum refining is straight away, but you have to, refineries, I come from that industry, so people keep on telling me, this, what will we do with our, plants? But refineries are expanding. They are expanding their capacities. So me and Mr. Bakre were discussing the other day that for all the future projects or refining, why should they not use the green hydrogen alone, and they should not set up any new hydrogen generation units, and some of them might have become redundant, etc., where also the green hydrogen possibly must be used. I talked about blending of green hydrogen in city gas distribution systems also. Now you can put 3%, 5% in the natural gas pipeline. Even piped natural gas, which we use at our homes, can easily, 3%, 2%, 5%, whatever. There is large consumption. We are importing about 40 million tons of, 40 or 50 million tons of natural gas from abroad. So can we, if we replace about few percentage, 1 or 2% of that, pump into the natural gas pipeline and let it be supplied to homes also, as a piped mixture in the piped natural gas, nothing is going to happen to those, neither to our stoves or not to our system infrastructure, which has been there for PNG. Even for CNG also, you can, when I was at Indian Oil, we had started some work on hydrogen CNG mixtures utilization in buses and trucks, etc. So small percentages, we had gone up to 18% and found that in fact, environmentally or the emissions wise, it is much better. We had reduced emissions with 15 or 18% of hydrogen going into CNG in the transport sector. It was demonstrated, and it is well documented. So why can't we use certain percentage in the natural gas mixtures also? A few increase of some cost will be there till such time the green hydrogen cost comes down. Then production of steel and cement. These are difficult to abate sectors and when we are getting into decarbonization, now we have been also hearing about the carbon, European border tax. Any industry which is exporting steel from India to European Union, or any products for that matter, they will have to, go for decarbonization and become net zero. Otherwise, European Union will put heavy tax. So option for them is to either use hydrogen and decarbonize their own production, or to pay tax to the European, agencies or to European countries. So maybe there is a great opportunity from that point of view also. And use of green hydrogen-derived synthetic fuels, green ammonia, it was mentioned in the morning, and green methanol, etc. We can always produce and use or even export if we don't find any outlet. But I'm sure, since the hydrogen demand I showed you in the country is going to be about 14 million tons in the country in 2030, and we are planning only for 5 million tons. So there is a great opportunity for substituting the future demand of hydrogen by green hydrogen in the domestic sector also. Then finally, the mobility sector. This is one sector where we had started some work on hydrogen CNG mixture I mentioned. There is a great potential for reducing and cleaning up our environment also beyond CNG, because CNG people say is clean, but it has also got some very fine, ultra fine particles coming in, which can also get deep into your lungs. So if you mix hydrogen, you reduce them further. And eventually, if you have near clean hydrogen IC engines, we have been looking for battery electric vehicles, which for two-wheelers, taxis, etc., that could be fine. But trucks, when it comes to, they have to carry the passenger load, and they cannot be carrying batteries load. They have to carry the load of the cargo. So those trucks, there are some developments which Tata and Ashok Leyland, they have already developed hydrogen IC engine-based trucking systems, where a lot of opportunity for hydrogen application will be there. But I always bet long for fuel cells. I was very glad to see BHEL. I don't know whether Mr. Srivastava is here or he's gone. He showed me the domestic. I was so happy and excited to see that 25 kilowatt, which you said that you can even ramp up that fuel cell. And I was mentioning to him during the tea break that why not look for this opportunity of substituting and developing some projects for hydrogen fuel cell based mobility. In fact, your fuel cell is PEM based, which is quite suited for the automobile applications. And one beauty for the fuel cell is that it is twice as efficient as compared to the internal combustion engines. Now, we are net importers of oil and gas in this country. And if we, rather than the internal combustion engines for our transport, eventually when we get into the fuel cells, you see energy consumption, when you talk in the total energy consumption, will go down. So whether so there is a great opportunity for hydrogen fuel cell based transportation in this country. And since this will be much more efficient, if we can develop some good cost effective fuel cells, that's the only issue. Otherwise, and if those are there, then the mobility sector will shift to fuel cells rather than batteries. Batteries have their own issues when we talk of carbon emissions during the battery manufacturing, which is not there with fuel cells. So fuel cells are much better when you talk in total life cycle emissions of the system as compared to the battery vehicles. I don't want to get into too much into that, but the story is that overall energy consumption, when we are an energy shortage country, we are importing energy. So if we have more energy efficient devices, you are indirectly reducing your energy consumption. So that's where the scope lies, and where the research and development need to be carried out. And finally, the safety. It was also mentioned in the morning that safety is very important. You have to have mandatory safety studies for hydrogen production, storage, and transportation. I come from the refining sector. We know how to handle hydrogen. We are very safely. Refineries, I have never heard during my 37 years which I spent in the Indian Oil, and then 6 years as the Federation of Indian Petroleum, any accident happening on the hydrogen system in the refinery. So hydrogen can be handled, but you have to have safe practices. And for that, you have to have quantitative risk assessment. You have to have hazard identification studies. You need to have hazard operation, which we all do in these systems where we use hydrogen. And whenever you are getting into hydrogen production or storage or distribution, you have to take care of these safety practices, which are not difficult to adopt. And all this needs to be done, because one accident can derail the entire hydrogen economy movement which is happening, and the mission, etc., could get a setback if any accident happens. So all of us need to be mindful about this. And then so finally, again, that hydrogen time has come. I'm very happy. And greetings to all of you once again on the Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Day, which will be tomorrow. And compliments to our Hydrogen Mission Director and in charge of Hydrogen, Joint Secretary, Mr. Yadav, for taking this initiative and organizing this event, which has brought us all together today also. So all the best to all those who are working in the hydrogen industry, and let us take opportunity of this time which has come. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. R.K. Malhotra, for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, now we would like to invite our next speaker, Dr. Rochan Sinha, CTO Nutrace. But before I invite him, may I say a few words about him. Dr. Rochan Sinha, co-founder and CTO Nutrace, is a J.N. Tata Fellow with a PhD in Applied Physics from University of Technology Eindhoven, Netherlands. He is an expert in the fields of material science and electrochemistry. He has 9+ years of experience in the development and scale up of the technology for renewable energy, storage, and production. With those words, may I invite Dr. Rochan Sinha to kindly present.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Shri Ajay Yadav, Joint Secretary, MNRE, CMD, Seki Shri R.K. Gupta, and Shri Sujit Pillai for inviting me for talking in front of such an esteemed audience at the occasion of World Hydrogen Day. So I am Rochan Sinha. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Nutrace. Nutrace began in 2021 with the dream of decarbonization of the industry. Both my co-founder Prashant and I, we spent the last decade in Europe. So when we came back to our hometowns of in Bihar and Tripura, we saw the changes that had happened in terms of the local effects of climate change. Temperature increases, increasing intensity of droughts and flooding, both. So it has been a long time coming that we had this urge to help our country in terms of both decarbonization as well as improving energy security. And our mission is basically the wide-scale adoption of green hydrogen to help fight climate change and help decarbonize the industry. So Prashant and I, like I said, we spent most of our career in Europe. Prashant did his PhD in fluid mechanics from Grenoble Alps in France, and I did it in Eindhoven University of Technology, Netherlands. We started in a very small scale way in IIT Madras, just the two of us. We demonstrated our first proof of concept. And since then, our journey has been exponential. We quickly raised our first round of funding. We have been funded by some of the most premier VC houses in India. And we have already reached, in the last 2 years, we have reached a stage of around 100 to 500 kilowatt systems of electrolyzer technology, all built in-house, completely indigenous. And we are actually already on our way for the first commercial pilot deployment with a major industrial partner. And I'll talk about that more in a bit. So, like Shri R.K. Mathuraj already gave a really excellent overview of why we need green hydrogen for the transition towards net zero. I'll just give a brief introduction again, because as Shri Bhallaji said, it bears repeating, it's extremely important. So hydrogen, like we all know, is an extremely important process and feedstock gas, as well as an energy carrier. As a fuel, it can be used in various domains. Refineries and fertilizers are the most commonly used domains at the moment, but steel, cement, chemicals, storage, and aviation, all of these are ripe for green hydrogen. The problem is that currently we are producing around 100 million tons of hydrogen per year, and most of this is through fossil fuels. And so we are producing around 1 billion tons of CO2 along with this hydrogen. This is not sustainable, and we need an alternative, and that is basically green hydrogen, which is produced via electrolyzers and biomass, but I'm talking about electrolyzers, so I will go ahead with that. So what is electrolysis? I guess most of you have some idea about this, but I'll just briefly go through this. Electrolysis is the process where basically you pass an electric current through water, and it splits into its constituents of hydrogen and oxygen. That is the most basic way of explaining it. So let's say if you think in first principles, you can take a bucket of water and stick 2 electrodes in it, and you apply electricity, and you will get hydrogen and oxygen, right? Now, the device, so instead of actually, you cannot use a bucket of water, you actually have to use a device, because you have hydrogen and oxygen, which together are an explosive mixture. You need to keep them separated. You need to use this hydrogen for various applications. So the device where this electrolysis process takes place is an electrolyzer. And the most basic component of a conventional electrolyzer that is in use today are the anode, which is positively charged, at which the oxygen is generated, the cathode, at which the hydrogen is produced, and the membrane, which allows ion transport while preventing the mixing of these gases. So a little bit more detailed understanding. At the system level, the electrolyzer consists of the stack and the balance of plant. The stack is the heart at which the electrolysis process takes place. And the balance of plant is the supporting system, but which is equally important. And it is used for the collection, purification, and storage of the hydrogen and oxygen gases. It consists of the separator vessels where you actually separate the gases from the electrolyte, which in different cases is different. It consists of the electrolyte circulation system, the power supply, and the gas processing system. All of these are extremely important, and all of these work hand in hand with the stack to ensure that you get the highest purity, highest efficiency system to produce hydrogen. Now, if you come a level deeper, that is the stack. The stack consists of multiple cells. So, like I said, the cell is basically composed of the anode, cathode, and the membrane. The stack now consists of multiple units of these cells, and each adjacent cell are normally connected in series. That means that you have an electrically series connection. There are other designs where you have parallel connections, but those are now outdated. So this is a bipolar electrolyzer, which is the most commonly used electrolyzer in the industry. And the stack level consists of various components. It consists of the cells, like I said. It consists of the end plates, the supporting frame, and the circulation channels, and obviously the gaskets and sealants to make sure that nothing is leaking. The cell level is where the actual magic takes place of water splitting. You have the co-components, so you have the bipolar plates, which allows this electrically series connection. You have the anode and the cathode, where the oxygen and hydrogen are produced respectively. You have the membranes, and you have some other components which have come up in the industry to ensure a higher efficiency and to ensure maximum purity, so such as the porous transport layer and the gas diffusion layer. Now, anode and cathode are made up of the current collector, which is your base metal, and the electrocatalyst, which is either platinum, iridium, or nickel-based in case of alkaline systems. So all of this together basically composes, so it's an extremely complex, extremely detailed system, which is used for producing hydrogen. I hope this gives a better idea about what goes into building up such a system. Now, what are the different kinds of the conventional electrolyzer technologies? The first one is the alkaline electrolyzers, which are the workhorse of the industry. The first alkaline electrolyzer system was actually established commercially in 1939, but research has been going on since before that. The advantage is that it uses low-cost nickel-based electrocatalysts. It has a lower cost of production, capex of around $800 to $1,000 per kilowatt, and it has a higher estimated lifetime of around 80,000 hours. This has already been actually shown in the industry, where electrolyzers which have been established back in 1930s and 40s are still actually running, obviously with repairs and the management. But there are multiple challenges to alkaline technology. The first one is the medium efficiency. So it has an efficiency of around 52 to 55 kilowatt hour per kg of hydrogen. It has low current density, so you're producing less hydrogen, which means that you have to have a higher footprint, basically. So the actual size of the electrolyzer, along with the balance of plant, is pretty big. You have a very high minimal load. Minimal load means basically what is the minimum current that you can run it at, minimum voltage. And that is because of the purity issues that pop up at minimal loads. And it is extremely difficult to ramp up and ramp down the alkaline technology quickly, which means that it is extremely difficult to use this with intermittent energy sources such as solar and wind. Solar and wind, they go up and go down very quickly, not only just across the day, but minute to minute. And alkaline is not fast enough to respond to that, basically. Again, the another issue is the lower hydrogen purity, less than 99%, and it is one of the most critical things is actually its dependence on a single membrane supplier, Zophon, by Agfa. It's a Belgian company which supplies 99% of all membranes to the alkaline electrolyzer industry, and it is controlled, it's a monopoly controlled by that company, right? So that is an extreme challenge, both from a cost perspective as well as a supply chain risk. The second one, which is also in industrial scale already, is the proton exchange membrane electrolyzers. It solves most of the issues which we have seen with alkaline technology. So it has higher efficiencies, 48 to 50 kilowatt hour per kg, low minimal loads and fast ramp up and ramp down time. So it can be used with solar and wind energy. High hydrogen purity, greater than 99.9%. And estimated lifetime of around 60,000 hours, which is also respectable. It also has high current density, so basically that means that you can have a smaller footprint, so you can fit more of these in one warehouse, basically, for producing much more hydrogen. But again, it also faces its own challenges. It has very high capex cost. It uses ultra pure water, which means that you have to use basically titanium for the entire balance of plant, and it uses rare earth metals such as platinum and iridium, which again increases the cost. And it also is expensive in terms of the auxiliary system. So the power supply and everything have to be extremely well controlled. So it requires use of more expensive power supply technology. And again, PEM uses Nafion. Nafion is produced by a single company which controls more than 99% of all production of PEM membranes in the world. And again, this is again a very big risk in terms of cost as well as supply chain. The next one is anion exchange membrane electrolyzers. These are more in the level of R&D. Some companies have introduced this in the market, but it's still in its early stages. The advantages over alkaline is that, and PEM is that it has still using low-cost nickel-based catalysts similar to alkaline. But alkaline cannot do ramp-up, ramp-down times, but AEM can, and therefore it can be used with renewables. It has a higher hydrogen purity than alkaline, and it is more compact because it can go to higher current densities. But the challenges, again, efficiencies are lower than PEM, 52 to 55 kilowatt hour per kg. Low current densities, low lifetime. The lifetime is a very important point to give because AEM membranes, they have been demonstrated at larger scales, but their lifetimes are very, very poor, in the order of, let's say, 1,000 hours. The issue is that basically they degrade under alkaline conditions. So if the actual electrolyte that you're using for the electrolysis process in AEM is actually damaging the membrane that is used to separate the gases. So over time, this causes a big issue, and this is a challenge which has yet not been solved by the industry. And the prices are actually very, very high for AEM membranes. And nobody has yet reached the level of Zophon and Nafion in terms of the cost and the production scale. So AEM is still, according to me, a bit farther away than either alkaline or PEM for filtration. Then the last one, the last conventional system that I'm going to talk about is solid oxide. The advantage is very high efficiency, so 36 to 40 kilowatt hour per kg. Low minimal load, but high ramp up times can be used with renewables in certain conditions once it is fully established and started. But the challenge is that it's extremely expensive to manufacture. The reason for that is that it's being run at very high temperatures, 800 to 1,000 degrees centigrade. So the materials which are being used, Inconel, all these other materials are extremely expensive. The entire balance of plant, the auxiliary systems have to be they're extremely expensive to manufacture. And so the capex is around greater than $9,000 per kilowatt. And it's extremely bulky because of the high temperatures that we are using. Here also we use some rare earth metals, yttrium, lanthanum being two of these. They're not much talked about, but they're also extremely difficult to get. I think China is the only one producing them at the moment. And it has very high maintenance costs and poor lifetimes because of the high temperatures. So All of this is basically coming to the point of what is stopping green hydrogen via electrolysis, and as our other members have already established, it's the cost, right? The green hydrogen cost is greater than $6 per kg versus the $1.5 to $2 per kg of gray hydrogen. There are several challenges which is causing this. The high capex of electrolyzers, they're expensive. The high cost and the supply chain risk of membranes. High efficiency requires high capex. So either you are using rare earth metals, which again are a supply chain risk, or you're using high temperatures of 1,000 degrees centigrade. And another thing that people don't really talk about, but it's good to know, is that electrolyzers have for a long time been a very small industry. So they have been established since 1900s, but they were producing, let's say, 1 or 2 units per day. So the way the electrolyzer technology has developed is extremely in a very manual manufacturing process. So there are companies that are now trying to automate these processes, but this is an extreme challenge that people don't really talk about. The scaling up of manufacturing, and I'll explain why, because like we mentioned before, we need 100 million tons of hydrogen today. That 100 million tons of hydrogen today requires around 600 gigawatt of electrolyzers. The current installed capacity is around 2.5 gigawatt, and the current production capacity is around 10 gigawatt. So this is just the hydrogen being produced today globally. If we see 2030, we need around 1,300 gigawatts of electrolyzer capacity to produce all of hydrogen as green hydrogen. So there is an entire 3 orders of magnitude level which is required in the production capacity, which has to be more quickly resolved. And that requires more automation, more understanding of the technologies for scale-up. So there's a huge market demand, and we are at a very ripe moment to make use of it. So this is another thing is the rare earth metals. This is also a very important point. PEM is an extremely useful technology, but it uses platinum and iridium. Platinum is around $30,000 per kg currently, and it's increasing around 10% year on year. Only 244 tons was produced in 2021, most of it in South Africa, and most of the refining of the platinum was being done in China. Iridium is even worse. It's $158,000 per kg, increased 140% year on year. Only 7 or 8 tons have been produced in 2021, 93% of that in South Africa. And most of the refining is again controlled by China. So even if you are scaling up, if you want to scale up to 1,300 gigawatt of electrolyzers, PEM cannot. You just don't have enough iridium. You don't have enough platinum to scale up to that level, just using PEM technology. So this is something that has to be very boldly stated, that rare earth metal usage is extremely difficult, both from a supply chain perspective as well as a cost perspective. And just the fact that we don't have enough of these rare earth metals in the world to get us to that level of hydrogen production. So that's where we come in. We are Nutrace. We are building a non-PGM membraneless electrolyzer. What is membraneless? Membraneless basically means, so like I said in the beginning, you have a bucket of water and you place 2 electrodes in it, and you're producing hydrogen and oxygen. Now in a conventional system, you place another thing in between, which is the membrane, and you say, okay, now this is separating the gases. What we are doing is we are basically using the flow of water, the flow of the electrolyte itself, to separate the gases. So this comes from a physical phenomena called the Segre-Silberg effect, which basically states that if you have bubbles in a channel and you have a laminar flow, a uniform flow of water across that channel, the bubbles of gases will not come and mix in the center. They will actually be pushed apart. And then what we do is we design this in such a way that it goes into separate channels. So as you see at the bottom, the working principle basically is that you have the cathode and the anode where the hydrogen and oxygen is being produced. And you have an electrolyte flow of a certain range, of a certain uniformity. This water then takes the hydrogen gases with the electrolyte on the left side and the oxygen gases with the electrolyte to the right side. So this seems very simple, But that's just the basic physical phenomena. People in academia have demonstrated it at a microfluidic scale, so basically a height of a few microns. We have gone much beyond that. We have demonstrated it now at a hundreds of kilowatt level scale. We have increased both the size and the capacity of the membraneless electrolyzer technology by 3 orders of magnitude. The advantages that it gives us, first of all, no membranes. So no supply chain risk, no risk of cost. Second, we use low-cost nickel-based catalyst. We have electrolytes very similar to the alkaline systems, so we can use nickel-based catalysts. It has low minimal load. So actually, it has no minimal load. We can actually run it at 1% if we want to. And it has fast ramp up and ramp down time. So basically, that means we can use it with any intermittent energy source, solar or wind. It has very high hydrogen purity. We have shown 99.99% purity at the cell level and 99.5% at the system level, which is comparable to PEM. It has high efficiencies on the order of around 50 kilowatt hour per kg, so the lower range of PEM. Lower capex, because our system removes a lot of the core components which go into the normal electrolyzers, and it also reduces the cost of auxiliary systems. I will explain later why that happens. The total overall cost of the system is reduced by 30% in terms of the capex. And because it is using nickel-based catalysts and materials very similar to alkaline systems, the lifetime is also much higher. So it's around 80,000 hours. So the idea behind all this is we didn't want to build the 99% efficiency electrolyzer that can be built just once and cannot be scaled. We wanted to build the next industrial workhorse. We wanted to build something that can be scaled, that can be easily used under any different conditions around the globe. So that's why we came up with this concept of membraneless electrolyzers. We have done multiple innovations. We have worked on our own proprietary electrocatalyst materials. This is not bought from market. We actually build it ourselves. We have done a full-scale stack manufacturing facility where we scaled from a watt level to hundreds of kilowatt in less than a year. We are also developing software. So hardware is what I've been talking about, but software is equally important. You need to have software that can manage the quick changes in intermittency that you see in solar to the hydrogen production. So you need a great management software. You need good analytics to understand how your electrolyzer is improving or degrading over time. We are working on predictive maintenance and predictive analytics for our electrolyzer, which is extremely important. And the entire control systems for the balance of plant is built in-house. We don't take any technology from any existing industrial user. This is India's first truly indigenous electrolyzer technology, and we have built this for the world. We intend to sell this globally. Exports is, like we said, a big market. But this is the only technology that I can say has scaled to the level that we have, which is completely indigenous, completely in-house, developed at our facility in Bangalore. So why our product excels? I already mentioned all of this, but I'll just briefly go through this. The first is the reduction in capex. No rare earth metals, no membranes. 30% reduction in manufacturing cost. We have an innovative design. We have applied for a patent for the fluid engineering that we are doing for making sure that we have a uniform flow of water, making sure that we have that 99.5% purity. We have ultra pure hydrogen and oxygen, like I mentioned, and minimum startup and ramp up times, which makes us useful for intermittent energy sources. We have optimized the system design, and this is something again which I would like to mention. Electrolyzer is not just the stack. The stack is one part of the electrolyzer. The entire thing, along with the balance of plant, is extremely important. You cannot just make a balance of plant and, a stack, and just put it with any balance of plant, right? That is the dream, but we are still not there. We have to build the balance of plant for your stack that you are making, right? So the optimization of that system design is extremely important, and we have done this from first principles again. We have questioned every item, every design choices that have been made in the industry over the past 50 to 100 years, and we have changed the things that don't make sense. We have added things that make sense. We have less expensive auxiliary systems. We don't need to use ultra pure water like PEM does. We don't need to have extremely well controlled power systems because we don't have the issue of the membrane rupturing because of variations in voltage. We are optimized already for scalability. We have quickly scaled from, like I said before, 1,000 orders of magnitude in terms of manufacturing. And we have the software development, which is the always connected part of things for the analytics and for the safety. Because the safety, like Mr. Malhotra mentioned, is extremely, extremely important. When you're working with hydrogen, you have to be very careful. But it's not like it's a demon that cannot be tamed. You just have to know what you're working with, and this is something we are taking very seriously. It has massive scaling potential. It is 100% in-house technology developed in Bangalore by our team. We are already working on automated manufacturing, working with different partners to kind of scale up our technology from the kilowatt level to the megawatt level. And we have complete ownership of the product assembly and the supply chains. We try to maximize the vendors to be as local as possible. Not only just India, but maybe even the city or the state that we are in. That also helps us because we don't treat them as vendors, we treat them as partners. They are developing with us. If we want to build up a hydrogen ecosystem in India, we need to take the partners who are building the actual different components of it up with us. We cannot just assume that they will start on it on their own. It's similar to what the automotive industry did for EVs. They partnered with their vendors, they helped them to improve their technology, and that's what we have been trying to do. There are certain components that have to be brought from outside, for example, instrumentation, but this is also something where we're trying a lot in order to basically try to make this in India as well. And it is designed to operate under optimal pressures and temperatures. So this is where I think you can see the progress which we have done. The first proof of concept we did was in IIT Madras back in December 2021. We built everything by hand from equipment we bought in Paris, in Chennai, which is a small hardware region. And we designed and built the first cell of our membraneless technology through 3D printing. We demonstrated a 99.99% purity. That's actually higher than what PEM shows in terms of purity levels. We then quickly went on to raise capital and scale up our operations. We then in Q3 of 2022, we demonstrated the first 1 kilowatt stack and balance of plant. At this scale, the stack, the technology was much more developed. We went to much bigger sizes. We developed the designs which are required to maintain uniform flow across, let's say, 100 channels. And the balance of plant as well, we worked a lot on making it more automated. But the next level, which is Mark III, which was in Q1 of 2023, so January of this year, we went to the 100 kilowatt level, where we made a completely automated system. The balance of plant was completely designed in-house. We obviously worked with our partners to build up the system, but all the design, all the software, everything was done in-house, and it's completely automated. And then we went on to build a Mark IV in February or March of the month of 2023, which is basically a 100 to 500 kilowatt system. And it is much larger in size. You can see the person there, it's like a double-story balance of plant. And so we are now scaling up to even megawatt levels. And so just to give a brief background, so we went from a few watts in December of 2021 to a 100 to 500 kilowatt level system in Q2 of 2023. So 1.5 years, basically. 3 orders of magnitude. So what is our roadmap? At 2023, we were at a 100 kilowatt stack size. We have a production capacity of around 10 units a year, which is around 1 megawatt. Efficiencies of around 50 to 52 kilowatt hour per kg. So at the lower end of PEM, higher end of alkaline, we are using distilled water or demineralized water, and we are running at atmospheric pressures. The lifetimes are around 50,000 hours based on our testing. And we have worked a lot on the control and automation and the analytics, as I was mentioning. As we go to 2025, our first aim is to basically build a 1 megawatt system and increase our production capacity to 10 megawatt. We want to improve our efficiency down to 45 to 48 kilowatt hour per kg, so basically better than PEM. We want to have a level where we can use tap water. So one of the beauties of not using a membrane is you don't worry so much about the quality of the water. It can still affect some of your other systems, but we are building technologies that will prevent those from happening for the electrocatalyst and for the balance of plant. So we are confident that we will be starting to use tap water. Seawater is on our scope, but that is a different ballgame, and this is something we're working towards. Pressure is again something which is really heavily dependent on the industry we are focusing on, but 30 bar is our focus. The pressure makes it easy for the industry to basically compress it further. The first 0 to 30 bar takes up most of the energy. So if we give it to them at 30 bar, they can easily scale it up to, let's say, 300 bar or 700 bar further down the line. Improvements in lifetime and the software. So the predictive analytics and the energy management system is something that actually we have already made like a proof of concept of, but we are now making it much more usable and much more universal in nature. Right, so what is our scaling? So the major thing that we have to talk about is again the cost of green hydrogen. So at a current 100 kilowatt to 500 kilowatt level, we have calculated a levelized cost of hydrogen of around $3 to $4 per kg. It's still not lower than, let's say, gray hydrogen, but it's at the level of blue hydrogen. As we scale up to 1 megawatt by 2025, our goal is to basically get it down to around $2 per kg, which would make it compatible with gray hydrogen. And as we go to 2027, we want to go lower and reach that milestone of $1 per kg. Again, just to mention this, $1 per kg is a milestone that has been set by various policy makers and various departments around the world, especially the US. You don't really need to reach $1 per kg. You need to go below gray hydrogen. That's it. You have to be cost competitive. It doesn't matter if you're at $1 or $2. You just have to get to that level, right? So that's what we're aiming for, and we hope to achieve this in the next 2 years. Right. So the time for change is now, and Nutrace is the one building for it. Thank you for your time, and yes, I'll open for questions.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. That was Dr. Rochan Sinha, the CTO of Nutrace. May we now invite the eminent scientist, Dr. C. Gopinath, to kindly make the presentation. But before I invite him, may I say a few words about you, sir. Dr. Chinnakonda Gopinath is currently working as an outstanding scientist at the National Chemical Laboratory, Pune. He is also the professor of Chemical Sciences, Academy of Scientific and Innovative Research, New Delhi, since 2012. Dr. Gopinath is actively engaged in hydrogen economy aspects and leading the hydrogen technology program of CSIR. 15 different CSIR laboratories are participating in H2T program across the entire value chain of hydrogen. His group actively works in the area of water splitting and artificial photosynthesis in direct sunlight by photocatalysts. With those words, may I request Dr. Gopinath to kindly make his presentation.
So, first of all, I want to thank you very much, both MNRE and the organizers, for inviting me to this wonderful day, actually, World Hydrogen Day. In fact, first I want to thank all, both the speakers who spoke before me, actually. In fact, they said the context really very nicely, actually. I will try to complement as much as possible, actually. So in fact, in the introductory thing, actually, inauguration session, actually, both Professor Ajay Sood and even Mr. Gupta ji also actually mentioned that, we need to get hydrogen from biomass, actually. So that's, in fact, we want to go beyond that, actually. So that's one thing I want to underscore. First, I want to make a few remarks, actually, before I get into the talk actually. The first thing is actually, in fact, Rochan mentioned about this actually. The big elephant sitting in the green hydrogen room is the cost. So everyone is talking about, we are going to bring down the price to $2, $1, actually, all these things actually. But then actually there is no roadmap actually. But then Rochan has some roadmap, and I'm really, really glad to know that actually. But then actually, how do we go beyond that actually? Because there are some practical difficulties, and even at global level actually there are many issues actually. So how do we overcome actually? And then, so what I'm going to present today is actually two different topics. One is actually, instead of only water electrolysis, go carbon negative hydrogen. How do we produce green hydrogen which is carbon negative actually? So that's the first one. In fact, this is the trend catching up at global level in the last 3 to 4 years actually, and my group is also working, and in fact we have also made a patent very recently, and more work is going on actually. So there is very, very potential area actually where the biomass components can go into the electrolyzer, and you produce hydrogen as well as the value added product simultaneously. So that's the first talk I am going to give actually. In the second half actually, I am going to touch about the artificial photosynthesis in direct sunlight. Very similar to silicon photovoltaics. You make your catalyst, make it as a panel, flow carbon dioxide plus water, and then get the methanol out. No hydrogen is produced, but what is the water splitting happens, the hydrogen produced is also consumed actually. So there are, no need to worry about the safety, because hydrogen is consumed when it is in the form of proton itself actually. So maybe Gupta ji will be, I want to take your comments also actually when I present actually. So the second half of my work. And so how we can overcome the cost of this hydrogen actually. So there are some data I'm going to show actually, and that will enlighten most of you, I believe actually. And then I also want to touch upon the power banking and the interstate transmission rules what we have actually. We may want to tweak a little bit actually. So let me come to that point when I show that data. And this year Nobel Prize was given for quantum dots in chemistry actually. The work what I'm going to talk about, the artificial photosynthesis, very well resonates with that, because the work what we have done is entirely dependent on that, the quantum dot what we are able to make, assemble and integrate the way very much the green plants do every day actually. So that's the very, very important part of the findings what we did actually. When you see green plants in the garden actually, it don't mix things actually, but it assembles and integrates actually. That means a bottom-up approach actually. What is available to nature is actually nothing but carbon dioxide, water, sunlight, some sodium, potassium, calcium ions, nothing more than that. Nature doesn't use any fancy stuff like platinum, rhodium, all these things we use actually, but then nature do not use any of these things actually. But still it is doing the photosynthesis for the millions of years actually. That's the beauty of photosynthesis, nature actually. So with that, let me go to my, yeah. So the first slide actually, I want to talk about that carbon negative hydrogen. What is carbon negative hydrogen actually? So here actually, when we use water as the input material, we produce water and hydrogen and oxygen. So that's what we call carbon neutral actually. But then when we use organic component, the organic component, if it comes from biomass component, say like glycerol, glucose, cellulose, so then actually we are making use of that to make value-added, carbon-based value-added product plus hydrogen actually. So water splitting happens, hydrogen evolves at the cathode, but at the anode, the oxidation of organic component happens, so both are value-added products. So we are not producing any oxygen. So let me make it clear. So here actually, so the usual petrochemical resources are not employed to make all those compounds what we are talking. Say it may be alcohol, it may be aldehyde, ketone, many products can be produced this way actually. So we are actually saving carbon. okay. So that's what it is called carbon negative hydrogen actually. So per kilogram of hydrogen actually, we will be able to save about 2 to 10 kilogram of carbon dioxide. So that is what it is called carbon negative hydrogen. It is picking up at global level. India should not lag behind. So that's the first point I want to make actually. And this also leads to the generation of value added product actually. So I'm going to tell you briefly about this actually. So here actually our National Green Hydrogen Mission roadmap is very, very clear. In fact, Malhotra ji clearly mentioned about that actually. So all the targets are already given actually, but what is not mentioned here is at what cost we are going to produce the hydrogen. So this is the place where the what I am going to present is going to be really, really important. So this is a very, very interesting slide actually. So here actually I'm putting 4 different factors on 4 axes. On the left axis, what you see is the renewable energy cost given in rupees per kilowatt actually. So right now, today actually we are at a level of about rupees 2 to 2.1, 2.2 rupees per kilowatt actually. And we are also trying to reach about 500 gigawatts installed capacity by 2030. So we know that we are going to bring down the renewable energy cost reasonably quickly actually. So that's really going to help for the hydrogen production. That's the first thing actually. On the top axis, what you see is the electrolyzer plant cost. You see the number I compare is actually $500 per kilowatt actually. In fact, Rochan showed actually it's about 700 to 800 dollars a kilowatt actually. That's alkaline and other electrolyzers actually. But PM electrolyzer, solid oxide electrolyzers are much, much, much costlier actually. So here actually, whether it is alkaline or PM actually, we have to bring down the cost to the level what we are showing actually. So that will happen at very, very scaled up level, not only scaled up level actually, but we need to improve the research and innovation. A lot of research and innovation should go into this area actually. Otherwise, we may not be able to bring down the cost of the electrolyzer. That means the smallest amount of catalyst, the thinnest membrane, all those things may be required actually. So that's the second thing. On the right axis, what you see is the plant efficiency. In fact, Rochan has given the plant efficiency for all the electrolyzer actually. So here actually, again to improve the plant efficiency, we need to have a lot of research and innovation. So that if it doesn't go higher and higher, it's not going to happen actually. So I mean that's one. I mean what I am trying to say is actually there is a lot of research and innovation challenges still needs to be addressed actually, especially the top axis and the right axis actually. The bottom axis is the plant load factor actually. So this is the place where the policy is going to play a major role actually. That is, if we have to work only during the renewable energy during the sunlight hours, that means between say 10 and 5 actually, our plant load factor will not go more than 25% actually. So even if you include all the wind energy and other energies actually, maybe 30%, 35% it may go actually. So how do we go about this actually? If I inject 1 megawatt electricity in Rajasthan, I should be able to use it anywhere in India all the 24 hours. So can we do this actually? If we can do that actually, this can be done only by tweaking the policy actually. So this is, I request MNRE and other government agencies to look at it actually. What are the possibilities to do that actually? Of course, there may be other difficulties may be there actually. But then if India has to compete, if India has to be a global hub for hydrogen, this also needs to be done actually. And then the other way is actually, of course, the carbon negative hydrogen what we can produce. So that's another thing. One more thing what I want to mention here is actually about $340 billion announcement has been made for the hydrogen production even at global level. But what is available on the ground is only 10% of that. So what is the message we are getting here is a bit confusing actually. Okay, so this is somewhere, still I feel that industry is sitting as a fence sitter actually. So if this has to go, then the cost has to come down actually, because cost is going to decide many things actually. So that's one thing I want to underscore actually. So, but still there are, potential areas are there actually. So now actually I want to come to the part what I said actually. Why biomass electrolyzer over water electrolyzer? Water electrolyzer is the one what people are talking actually. Now I am going to talk about the biomass electrolyzer. So it is the same as that of water electrolyzer. Water electrolyzer, what in fact Roshan has already mentioned actually very, very clearly. So at the cathode we generate hydrogen, and at the anode we do the water to oxygen oxidation basically. So in the biomass electrolyzer, what we do is actually again with the same water, we produce hydrogen, but at the anode we oxidize the biomass components to value-added chemicals like methanol, acids, and carbonyl compound. There are many, many, many products actually. So what happens actually, so that when it is produced, we are not consuming a petrochemical source. This is the reason why it is called carbon negative hydrogen actually. So that's the first thing. The second thing is actually the potential, what is shown on the screen, the red curve is the potential required to generate hydrogen and oxygen actually. I mean, so this is mainly for the water oxidation to oxygen, so which requires about 2 volt at a cell level. But when I use biomass, the potential comes down to 0.4 volt actually. So that means there is going to be a drastic reduction in the power requirement to produce 1 kilogram of hydrogen. So it will easily come down 10 to 15 kilowatt hour I will able to reduce actually, minimum. So this is the not optimized actually. So after optimization, I am sure that, even at 33.3 kilowatt hour, at that level we will able to generate hydrogen, so that, there is no extra power required to produce 1 kilogram of hydrogen, because when we burn 1 kilogram of hydrogen, we get about 33.3 kilowatt hour actually. So the same amount may be sufficient actually. So that is the way this can work. So this is the main attractive point of this biomass derived electrolysis. So here actually, as I mentioned actually, reduction in power consumption to 40 kilowatt hour per kilogram of hydrogen. This is, again, it is at a very, very preliminary level. So there is a lot of research is going on, and I really want India should not miss this bus actually. Okay, so that's the first thing. So this is also going to contribute to the circular economy, because, we are converting a waste into wealth actually. The value added products what we produce is going to bring, is going to bring down the cost of hydrogen even further actually, very quickly actually. So in fact, hydrogen will be a less value product here than the value added product what we are talking actually. So these are the 2 points I want to highlight here actually. So as I said actually, this research is picking up very fast elsewhere at global level. We cannot afford to miss this bus actually. So that's first thing I want to say. Of course, there is a product separation issues there actually, but then we have very good companies, chemical engineers are there actually, so this should not be a big problem. Okay, so this is just to pictorially explain everything in one slide actually, where, when instead of, with water actually, when we add a biomass component, like it may be a glycerol. See, glycerol is available in plenty because of the biodiesel industry. So after the hydrolysis, after the biodiesel is removed, there is plenty of glycerol available at a throwaway price actually. That's a very, very dilute glycerol. The dilute glycerol can be directly used in this electrolysis actually. So that's the very, very real benefit. Not only glycerol, there are many, many other biomass components like glucose, sucrose, all those things can be used actually. So that's the very, very attractive fact about this. So this is just to summarize what happens actually, especially the top one actually, the panel A, what I am showing is the transesterification, where the biodiesel is produced first and then glycerol remains. That glycerol goes into the electrolyzer as a feedstock. That glycerol gets oxidized to lactic acid and hydrogen actually. So both products are very, very valuable. If you take the PET polymer actually, so from there actually one can get ethylene glycol. There are processes available. That ethylene glycol goes as a feedstock in the electrolyzer, and that produce glyceric acid as well as hydrogen. So like that, many, many things are coming up very fast, And this, we should take advantage of that. And it has been demonstrated in a typical electrolyzer also. So I do not go into the detail. And this particular slide shows actually the list of catalysts what I have listed on the left side. If you see, they're all very, very cheap metals actually. Of course, noble metals also can be used, but then I'm not going to give any importance to the noble metals. But metals like iron, cobalt, nickel, all those things can be used in a different combination, and still we can do the electrolysis plus value added product formation. So we are getting two things in one go actually at a very low power consumption actually. So these are real advantage of this. And then this is just to show that there is glucose oxidation leads to glucaric acid, which is one of the very value added product. So this particular slide shows the financial analysis as well as the other what is the work done already actually. In fact, to date actually we are lagging behind at the international level, but we should not miss this bus actually. So I am repeatedly telling this sentence again and again actually, because late 80s and early 90s actually India missed the silicon bus terribly actually. That mistake we must not allow it to happen actually in the case of hydrogen actually. So my humble request to all the government department is actually, please provide more support in form of R&D actually, because 400 crores is okay, but then we need really lot of money actually for R&D actually. So that's my humble request to all MNRE and DST, any government agencies actually. So this is just to summarize the biomass electrocatalysis, what has been going on, and in fact my group also doing. Here also we are not using membrane actually, because hydrogen is the only gaseous product. All the other products are in the gas phase actually. What I forgot to tell you actually, here actually this electrolysis do not lead to any carbon dioxide. So it doesn't come in the gas phase. So no energy is basically wasted. All the products are useful actually. And then of course it is self-sustaining. Then there are many benefits like circular economy. Both capex and opex can be brought down actually. So there are many advantages. Let me go to the next half of my talk actually. So this is on the beautiful photosynthesis, where as I mentioned in my introduction actually, nature only requires, for the photosynthesis, it requires only water, carbon dioxide, sunlight, some sodium, potassium, calcium ions, nothing else. So it is doing this job of producing the food for itself for millions of years very nicely. But we are unable to do that actually. So what is the way out? In fact, this is the place where I want to underscore that nature do not mix things actually. Nature actually assembles what is available, say carbon dioxide, water, what is available, it breaks water into one molecule of water into hydrogen and oxygen. That hydrogen is consumed for the carbon dioxide reduction to form, carbohydrates, basically sugar or glucose, sucrose, whatever you call actually. So it builds up that actually from very atomic molecular components actually. This is the approach we have also followed, and we became reasonably successful. I'm going to briefly describe about that. So here actually, in fact, this is my dream actually. So this silicon photovoltaics actually, when it was deployed first, it was deployed first in 60s for the satellites. Okay, because in satellites actually, to power the satellite, we needed a source. So silicon photovoltaics was developed originally for powering the satellite in 60s. Today, we are installed capacity of 170 gigawatt. In 60s, we might not have imagined actually. My vision is actually the work, what is going on actually, where we will able to create a panel, silicon solar panel like this actually, with a catalyst panel, which works in the sunlight directly with a mixture of carbon dioxide saturated water. One will be able to go directly to methanol or many different chemicals actually. So here actually sunlight is the only input source. The way silicon photovoltaics works, the same way it is going to work. Only thing, silicon photovoltaics generates electricity, but the findings what we did is actually it is going to convert carbon dioxide into liquid fuel molecule which can be transported anywhere actually, because we have the infrastructure. We don't need to create any infrastructure. That's the advantage. In fact, about a year back, a Japanese group demonstrated a similar concept with photocatalyst panel, about 100 meters square actually, where they have done the water splitting to hydrogen and oxygen. But their work actually suffered because their catalyst efficiency is really poor. But what it demonstrates is actually this is possible. The proof of concept is there to convert water into hydrogen and oxygen by following the photosynthesis method actually. So what we have done is actually we have gone one more step actually, where carbon dioxide saturated water we have used and converted carbon dioxide into directly methanol and formaldehyde. Okay, so of course more work needs to be done. So here actually just want to just highlight few points. What are the inputs we have put into this particular work? As I said, actually nature follow the bottom-up approach. It assembles and integrates things actually. I mean, if you see a growth of a leaf actually, first day actually you may see a small tiny spot actually, and then after a week you might see a little bit bigger actually. So it is not mixing anything actually. It is assembling one molecule at a time, assembling and then growing slowly actually. So this is what we call it as a chemists call it as a bottom-up approach from atoms and molecules actually. This is the approach we have done actually. And second thing is actually in the leaf actually it is a single piece. Okay, so it is like a thin film. We can consider it as a thin film. It is not a powder actually. So if I pass, because during photosynthesis, light is absorbed, electrons are excited, holes are there. So electrons has to move from one place to another place to do the job actually. So that means actually the components has to be connected very well. This is done by the nano micro architecture by God himself actually, nothing, not man-made actually. So this is a nanotechnology, going on for millions of years actually. So that means, moving electron from one place to another place needs the conductivity and then junction characteristic, all these things actually. So that means they all have to be together actually. So that is another thing what we have incorporated. The third thing is actually, again, in the water splitting, the oxygen formation is the kinetically sluggish step actually. So how do we make the process very fast? So that is also taken care. And then maybe I will skip some of these points actually, it's not great actually. But ultimately what is actually, there are so many things, light absorption, the entire light absorption of the entire sunlight wavelength range, and then moving electron from one place to another place, then doing the reaction. There are so many factors are lined up in doing this photosynthesis. So there are many different factors are required to be integrated in one system. That requires the integration of all these components into one device actually. So where the electronic and structural integration really plays a major role. So that we are able to do that. And so the idea is to optimize many different components in one single device. That should be the way. So here actually carbon dioxide to, it can be reduced to many different compounds actually, but the challenge is actually all these compounds forms at a very closely, potential actually. Carbon dioxide to carbon monoxide, formaldehyde, methanol, formic acid, methane, all these things can be formed actually, but at a very close. So that means the semiconductors, what we are talking has to be really engineered actually to produce one or two product actually. So this is what nature teaches actually. So we put ourselves so many conditions like, the device what we are making should absorb entire range of sunlight, valence and conduction band potential should meet water oxidation potential and CO2 reduction potential. Ideally, reaction should occur around neutral pH and at room temperatures. So selectivity of the product, again, it matters, all those things actually. So of course, it has to be really cheap. So that's going to be very important. So this is a combination of all these things we have done. And what we have done is actually, we took a commercial titania semiconductor. There are pores in that. In the pore, we have assembled and integrated as semiconductor, another semiconductor which absorbs sunlight. So in the first case, actually, where carbon dioxide to methanol and formaldehyde is produced, bismuth vanadate is assembled and integrated. We have another system actually where carbon dioxide goes directly to the ethanol and carbon monoxide plus a little bit of methane actually. So here what we did is actually the second light absorbing semiconductor is assembled and integrated from the ionic precursors. So what happens is the junction characteristics becomes very, very, very good actually. So here actually we are able to, let me go to show the efficiency. So here efficiency actually, I mean, if you see the last point, we have already scaled up the device up to about 100 square centimeter. Initially, of course, we started with 1 square centimeter, but now we are at a level of 100 square centimeter, and we want to go even square feet as well as square meter device. So if the efficiency what we are talking with this particular device, if this can be scaled up linearly, so it is going to convert 1 kilogram of carbon dioxide per hour, 1 kilogram of carbon dioxide per hour with to about 0.67 kilogram of C1 oxygenate product, I mean the useful products, with 6.4 meter square device actually. So with 6.4 meter square device, I will able to convert 1 kilogram of carbon dioxide every hour actually. So, and if it can, I mean, to put it in perspective, actually, 1 ton of CO2 can be converted per hour per 2 acres of photoanode device. So once that photoanode is installed in 2 acres, actually, it is going to convert a ton of CO2 per every hour, actually, in direct sunlight, actually. Of course, sunlight is not available all the days actually, but even if I assume that half the days only is available actually, so the efficiency what we are talking is really, really high here. So this is the way we have already grown. I don't want to go into the too much technical detail, but just I want to show one factor here actually. I mean, when it comes to the CO2 sink, what natural trees are doing actually, the black forest trees actually, it picks up about 7 tons of CO2 per year per hectare actually. Okay, so this is what the report says. And then lowest is 0.4 tons by some boreal tundra woodland growth actually. So compared to this, the device what we have made actually, it can pick up, I mean it can convert, it's not pick up actually, it can convert 1.2 ton of carbon dioxide per hour per hectare to C1 oxygenate product actually. So this is assuming this is easily 100 times faster than the nature actually. And even if my device works only at 10% efficiency, it requires only say 2 days actually to convert 1.2 ton of CO2 per hour per hectare actually. Okay, so here actually just want to underscore some of the challenges what we have actually in the area of electrolyzer. All those things are listed. Maybe I am running out of time actually, so I will go quickly thing actually. So these are some of the challenges what we have, which has been already underscored by my previous speakers actually, so I don't want to go into the detail. But then some of these sectors what we really want to contribute is actually the artificial photosynthesis what I talked actually. Of course there are many things can be done, and then water electrolysis without oxygen evolution reaction. And then of course the third thing is actually seawater splitting, because water could become a problem, water could become a political problem also actually, especially in the water stressed region actually. So seawater splitting has to be promoted even at some level actually. So that's my humble request. And I'm also fortunate enough to lead a hydrogen technology program across CSIR, which is happening about in 17 different labs across all the 3 value chains of hydrogen, that is hydrogen production, hydrogen storage distribution, as well as hydrogen utilization in the form of mainly for fuel cell actually. So these are some of the key activities what we are doing, and this is just to show that we are working on all the 3 different electrolyzer. That's the PEM electrolyzer, anion exchange membrane electrolyzer, as well as the solid oxide electrolyzer, and then type 3 and type 4 cylinders also we are working. the low temperature as well as high temperature PEM fuel cell we are working. Actually, in fact, I want to really happy to say that KPIT, what the bus, fuel cell bus, what they have demonstrated is with our technology actually. In fact, first the initial work started in NCL, and then we grew up to 3 kilowatt, and then with 10 kilowatt stack actually they were able to demonstrate car, and then followed by they themselves went ahead and made the 40 kilowatt stack. With that actually they were able to demonstrate the fuel cell operated bus, 9-meter bus. Now actually the focus of this program is actually to improve the efficiency of the fuel cell what we are building, and with that actually we will able to bring down the cost as well as capex, everything actually, footprint, everything. And then we are also doing the skilling program. So we have already conducted 2 workshops and more workshop in the pipeline. Those who are interested, they may contact me or my director. Okay. So these are some of the product but we have already demonstrated from CSIR. So I don't want to go into the details, and I'll stop here, and I'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gopinath. Ladies and gentlemen, we now invite from SPDA, Mr. Prashant, to make his presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, MNRE, for this opportunity. A small clarification to begin with. Rohan talked about one Prashant as co-founder of his electrolyzer company. So I'm not that Prashant. That's for clarification. Couple of minutes. I'll not extend much into lunch and this part. Thank you very much for this opportunity to SPDA. Let me just give a bit of a background. What is SPDA and what do we do? So it's a Sustainable Projects Developer Association, promoting thought leadership, acting as a bridge in the context of the requirements of the industry as such, and putting those before the government, and trying to be a neutral balancer so that the renewable energy transition can be led in a very harmonious way. Led by Sri Sekhar Dutt ji, who is Director General of SPDA, former Governor of Chhattisgarh and ex-Defense Secretary, and also led by Mr. Vineet Mittal as President, who is also a Chairman of Avada Group, who has in fact led solar revolution in the country in last 10 years and contributed a lot, and actually made Avada as from solar to ascent to molecule company. So that's the background. Thank you for this invitation, and SPDA has done a lot more work in the context of green hydrogen and green ammonia, and those initiatives have really helped in the context of the way the industry is forging ahead. One of them probably was a policy advocacy to get a environment clearance exemption for a green hydrogen and green ammonia projects. SPDA has worked in the context of raising issues when the HINTCO tender came. One important dimension was Article 6.2, which I'll talk later also for a couple of minutes. It's a very important dimension in terms of pitching India as a phenomenal opportunity for green hydrogen and green ammonia, and a lot of other issues which are there before the industry. And almost like 50 members of renewable industry who have been a part of leading renewable energy transition. Avada, whether ACME, Renew, Azure, they are all members of this association, and they are also very eminent in the context of being a part of a green hydrogen or green ammonia journey which is happening in the country at the moment. It's a very auspicious day, 8th October, for a Green Hydrogen Day, celebrated almost like for the first time because the traction has happened now. A very intelligent tribute to atomic weight of hydrogen, 1.008. That's how the 8th October came. And it's incidentally also a Air Force Day, 8th October, which is symbolic in the context of being sky is the limit. And that's how this concept unfolded about 2 years ago, where our Honorable Prime Minister led probably the foundation of a national hydrogen mission when he announced from the rampart of the Red Fort. And if you look at his speech that day which he gave and he was talking about, so there were 2 underlying themes which were like of a direction to the way he wanted green hydrogen to, or a hydrogen to lead this. One was that he had a view that green hydrogen will lead to the green growth through green jobs, and also will set the example before the world as what the India is doing in terms of leading the clean energy transition, and it's a very clear message. Second is that setting an agenda, which was done earlier also, when even renewable energy, as you have seen the growth happening for last 10 years, that has been fantastic and phenomenal. So reaching to a level of 70 odd gigawatt of a solar and wind, which we are looking today, has been something because that vision has been seen in that direction. And I remember, because we were in the industry for a while, that at that time about 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 megawatt of a solar projects were thought to be quite huge and impossible projects. And that's the marvel of that vision that has led to the country to this level today. About 95 odd million tons of a hydrogen requirement today is precisely a gray hydrogen requirement, and most of that is captive at the moment. I think 0.7% is what comes from the clean hydrogen today from that context. And that gives a phenomenal opportunity. So one important aspect is that it's not a business as usual case. We can't handle this humongous ecosystem if we take as business as usual case. It cannot happen in that way. What are the segments of this ecosystem? Starting from the renewable energy per se, right, which is required to lead to this vision. It's 125 gigawatt, which is almost like what we have done in the last 10 years, set up that kind of a capacity. Now, creating that kind of a capacity, humongous capacity, is a major ecosystem challenge. Leading this renewable energy, creating those transmission corridors will be, again, a major part of this ecosystem. Electrolyzer capacity, you have heard our eminent panel saying that humongous electrolyzer capacity, about 30 gigawatt electrolyzer capacity would be needed. With this will come tremendous financing, which is required, right? Offtake agreements are required to lead this and convert it to a successful venture. Another important dimension on the ecosystem would be, once you are done with hydrogen or green ammonia, then the storage, transportation, and use. That is again a separate ecosystem. So it's a very humongous ecosystem we're looking at. And that's the reason we say that we can't handle with the set of policies which we have, set of ecosystem. It requires a tremendously different kind of a perspective to lead this. Good part is that this entire vision is led upfront by the government at a highest level, and that's a really good thing. About 46 countries have come out with their hydrogen related policies or mission documents today at this point of time, India being one of the leading in this, because we could see without really going for a deep decarbonization of a hard-to-abate sectors like refineries or steel, you can't really go for real climate change mitigation. India has been at the forefront at a global level. You have seen the very successful G20 now, and the way the world looks at India today, that entire perspective has also changed, and India has a much larger role to play in the context of this. Another ecosystem would be development of a ports to handle that. So what the Honorable Prime Minister at that time looking at, one is this entire green growth, green job, but second is also to make India as a hydrogen hub. That's important. So we do not want to be a merely importer, what has been a part of our journey. And that's the real aspect of a self-reliance which is happening. If you want to play a larger role as an exporter, you have certain fundamentals, right? You have a very conducive ecosystem. Thank you, MNRE, for leading this. Bringing those policies, one of our earlier policies for a green hydrogen, first a mission came, announcement came. A green hydrogen policy came quite earlier than, which is more to handle with the supply side requirement. It talked about banking, at least put banking, which is required for a renewable energy being intermittent in nature, and it guaranteed so that developers who are developing the projects have a sort of a comfort in this mind, because you can't have RTC power generation through a renewable energy. It talked about many other supply chain. It talks about ISTS waiver, which has been given. So that one part of a supply chain ecosystem was set up. Then came National Green Hydrogen Mission with a fantastic PLI also, side program. A lot of people said that probably the amount is insufficient, right? It's about $2 billion, 18,000 crores. People talked about IRA of USA, which is giving $3 per kg of a subsidy. But people forget that the $3 of subsidy is for carbon emissions, which are very difficult to achieve. So for benchmarking of a 2 kg of emission, whatever is subsidy works out in India would about be 45, 50, 40 to 50 rupees is still there, and it's comparative to a 70 to 80 rupees which you get in the context of you're getting in US. So it is, amount is one part, because there is no cap in the context of a ITC or a PTC you are getting in the IRA in US, but looking at the way we are transitioning, I think it's a fantastic amount to go forward with. So that's again. Third and fourth important thing, which is important, would be a harmonious, creating this harmony in terms of the standards of the hydrogen. So the hydrogen you produce, why would the world say that it's the right green hydrogen or a green ammonia? And that harmony will create require a much more work for a standardization. That's another dimension of this. So from a SPDA, I think I would like to again congratulate MNRE. We have seen, we have worked with MNRE, with the government on various things. We have seen a lot more attraction happening it, a very conducive ecosystem being evolved. A lot of review meetings which are happening today were unheard of, almost like monthly basis, and that gives a much wider platform for the consultation, for the concession building. And when those policies come out, there is no friction because you've already done so much homework, you have discussed with the industry and bring that voice forward so that there is much lesser room for the disputes and other things to come. From the SPDA side, I would still be requesting a couple of things which are there. One is important is Article 6.2, and SPDA has been raising this various forums. It's a fantastic opportunity, not only for the government to government collaboration, but also for a B2B. India has done phenomenally well. If you look at our NDC's commitment, other things, we have almost reached to a very good level, where if you do so much of a renewable, it may not be required actually for the NDC. It is required for a net zero, which is there for 2070, right? So other countries who have challenge in terms of reaching those, right? We have abundance of a land in Rajasthan, Bikaner, you can set up humongous amount of solar power. But Japan and Korea barely have a 10% of a land to actually do that. So there are two aspects to it. One, we have a very competitive renewable energy industry. We have this capability to do it. And those who do not have this capability to do it, but they have funds, they have technology, can we have this collaboration? So we do the projects and we transfer those carbon credit known as ITUMOs to them. So there has been tremendous development. Japan has brought out a joint crediting mechanism, JCM. So we request government, and government is working on that in terms of doing a policy advocacy at a much international level. That will really help Indian industries to go for offtake agreement, which are required for the bankability of these projects when you go for this tremendous amount of financing required later on. One would also be that green hydrogen and green ammonia, if it's required as are identified and recognized as the infrastructure sector, it will also really help in terms of putting in a harmonious list of RBI. So it will help a lot more accessibility in terms of a fundraising, but will really be required later on. So that's another important issue. The third would be that some of the provisions which are coming up, as I said, it is not a business as usual case. So you need to have, need to create a separate ecosystem to handle this behemoth like hydrogen. The policies, the banking arrangements for energy required has to be seen from that perspective. It cannot be generalized, and electricity anyhow being a part of a concurrent list will always have states as a voice to say, because at the end of the day, entire electricity is handled at a distribution. That's the last mile. So distribution utilities, they will have their own kind of a thing, may not be aligned to a larger and a novel vision which is there for the hydrogen itself. So with these requests, once again, congratulations and bringing hydrogen on really a world map and giving all of us this opportunity to celebrate this day. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prashant, for sharing your thoughts. Once again, we thank all our speakers for sharing their rich experience and their thoughts with the audience here. We would like to thank all our speakers by presenting a memento. And ladies and gentlemen, please join me as I invite Joint Secretary Hydrogen, Shri Ajay Yadav ji, to kindly join us onto the stage and present a memento to our distinguished speakers. We would like to present a memento to Dr. R.K. Malhotra, President, Hydrogen Association of India. Thank you so much, sir. We'd like to present a memento to Dr. C. Gopinath from NCL. Thank you so much, sir. We now present a memento to Dr. Rochan Sinha from Nutrace. We also thank Mr. Prashant from SPDA. Thank you so much, Mr. Ajay Yadav, for doing the honors. Sir, can you just stay back for the group photograph, please? May I request all the speakers to kindly step forward for a group photograph? Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, we have the release of the podcast. Kindly join us for the release of the podcast. Over to the audiovisual team for the release of the podcast.
अक्षय ऊर्जा और हम ये तो हैं जीवन के संग
सूरज की किरणों से
नदियों की ताल से
हवाओं की चाल से
मिलती है अक्षय ऊर्जा दिन रात हर पहर हर शहर हर नगर रोशन है जीवन की हर डगर अक्षय ऊर्जा और हम ये तो है जीवन के संग
Hi guys, do you know what can be our hero in ensuring a greener future? Any guesses? It is hydrogen and our commitment to net zero emissions. And the National Green Hydrogen Mission is meticulously working to educate and encourage people in this direction.
अक्षय ऊर्जा और हम ये तो है जीवन के संग
Hello guys, I'm Akshay and I welcome you all to this podcast episode of Akshay Urja Aur Hum with my co-host Urja. This episode is brought to you by the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy and it is going to be full of interesting facts for all of us.
Hello, listeners. This is Urja, and what a start to the show. Akshay, your energy is infectious.
Well, thank you Urja, effects of some good company. Anyway, I have a good question for you.
Go on.
Tell me, what element is most abundantly found in the entire universe?
Come on, Akshay.
Thank you so much. That was the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we are concluding our conference. But before that, they would like to just speak about the way forward and they will also propose the vote of thanks. And may I request scientist Shri Sujit Pillai to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
So, respected Joint Secretary Sir Shri Ajay Yadav and all other dignitaries, as we conclude this World Hydrogen Day, let us carry forward the enthusiasm and insights gained here. Let us collaborate, innovate, and advocate for a hydrogen-powered future. Together, we can pave the way for a cleaner, greener, and more sustainable world. I would like to express my deepest gratitude to all the speakers, exhibitors and attendees who have made this event possible. Your dedication to advancing hydrogen technologies is inspiring. Let us leave here today with a renewed sense of purpose and a commitment to making hydrogen a central pillar of our sustainable energy future. As you may have seen in some of the presentations, the hydrogen economy is going to be here sooner than expected. As you saw in Dr. Rochan's presentation, for instance, by 2027, we could be at $1 to $1.5 per kilogram of hydrogen. So let me then conclude, because I'm sure you must be all waiting for lunch, that the potential is immense. And as we proceed in the next few years, MNRE is going to make sure that you get all the support needed to achieve the hydrogen economy. Thank you.
With that, we have come to the concluding point. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, so wonderfully participating. Please do not miss the exhibition and also enjoy your lunch. Thank you.